Scout really wanted to show you her newest trick. Oh, look at her crossing her paws. We're too obsessed with our dog. Hey guys, welcome back to the Kinwoven home. Today we're gonna have a heart-to-heart. We're gonna tell you all the things that are going on in our life.
Who are you, by the way?
What? And I'm Sharrah, and this is
Tyler.
And we're married, because since none of you know who we are, apparently.
Well, you say every video, you say, welcome back to the Kinwoven home. I'm Sharrah.
He is just afraid you guys are gonna forget. Well, first of all, we're having a baby. Most of you know that. Second of all, we're moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain.
That's right.
What are we doing? We wanted to tell you guys a little bit of the why behind why we picked Tulsa, the process that we've been on this last couple of months, when we're moving, and kind of like just give you guys a little bit of a peek into all the big decisions that are coming up in our life.
2020 has been a crazy year, and just so happened to be the year that we had like all of our big life changes happen too.
I know.
I know anytime I tell my friends where we're moving, people are like, well, why Tulsa?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about why Tulsa?
Mm-hmm.
Why Tulsa?
Scout's very distracting to me, probably to all of you too.
Excuse me.
Can you lay down?
Go to your house.
No, like regular lay down. Okay. So first of all, why are we moving, Tyler?
I know, we get that question a lot. We live in sunny San Diego. Southern California is beautiful. It's one of the most amazing places in the world. But yet we decided that we're ready to leave it and try something new. I think for me, it's just always been an exciting idea to kind of pack up, move somewhere where we can afford to buy a house that you can really unleash your design power onto.
Yeah. Release my powers.
Just see, how you can turn that house into our home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the big reasons we wanted to move is honestly just for a better quality of life for our future family. We love San Diego. There's nothing wrong with San Diego from a lifestyle perspective, but it's just really expensive. We just really want to move to a place where family is a really big focus of that town, where our kids can be walking around the neighborhood and ride their bikes, where Scout can run around and play outside and not have to be running around inside. I don't know if you guys follow Ellie and Jared on YouTube, but I have been a follower of theirs for a long time, and they were talking about a move that they're making, and the way that they described it and said it was actually really cool. They asked themselves this question, which was, what would you do if you were not afraid? How would that question impact the trajectory of your life and the decisions that you make? For us, it was really scary to leave a town that I am so comfortable with, but I think there's just a lot of opportunity and some really cool life challenges and really great blessings that come from taking an adventure, taking a leap of faith, and doing something totally different and outside your comfort zone. And I feel like both Tyler and I and my mom all really felt like, why not? Life is so short. Why not pick up and move to a new city and really start to grow our business and our family?
So when we first started talking about the idea of like, hey, what would it be like, if we were to move somewhere where it's more affordable and, we can really just buy the house of our dreams, what would that look like? Some of the things that were important to me were affordability. Is the housing affordable? Because if we're going to leave Southern California, I want to make sure we're getting a lot for our money. I want to make sure it's a house that we never ever could have bought in California.
Right. The other thing that what we were looking for in a new city was kind of a city that had a lot of potential and that hadn't necessarily popped yet. I think there's a lot of really cool things that come from being a part of a city that you're one of the first to discover how much of a gem it is. And in order to do that, you have to pick a city that most people are going to think, well, are you sure? This seems like a really weird choice.
We started just with a list of okay, what are the things that are must-haves? What are the things that we really want?
I didn't want to live in such a small town that had nothing I was familiar with as far as shopping or grocery shopping or any of that. We worked with a relocation coach, and he said, is there anything else you guys have on your list of what you wanted? And I said, I kind of want to have chickens. And he was like, well, I'm happy to know that, because there are certain cities you can't actually own your own chickens in. I didn't know that.
Do you still want to have chickens?
Yes.
Is that still a thing?
I already have a plan of where we're going to put it in the new house.
I guess we're getting chickens.
Bark, bark.
We wanted a city that still had a lot of the amenities of a big city that we're used to. So a good airport close by.
Yeah.
Your Whole Foods, Trader Joe's.
They have 2 Whole Foods and 1 Trader Joe's, and they have the biggest Lululemon in the country.
One of the big things that I was looking for is just like a sense of community. So a city that, you know, is not, like we said, not a small town, but feels like it, where people are friendly, people are open to outsiders coming in.
That was rare to find on our journey. Certain cities we went to were like this to Californians moving in. Tulsa was one of the unique cities. Not only were they okay with it, but they were like, you should totally move here. We love it here. This is an awesome place to live, and we want everyone to know about it, so please move to Tulsa, which was really refreshing because, like I said, some of the places we visited were like, oh, you're from California? You shouldn't tell people that because they're not gonna like you. We're like, okay, maybe this isn't for us. You guys now know we wanted to move for a lot of different reasons. We want to go on an adventure. We did look at a bunch of other cities, and ultimately we've landed on Tulsa because we found almost everything on that list of things that we want, Tulsa has, and more. And I'm just excited to be out there and be able to just show you guys some really cool footage of what the city's like right now. And I think once you guys start to see the things that we see, it'll all make sense as to why we've picked Tulsa.
I'm really excited. It's going to be really sad and bittersweet to leave here, but I'm excited to get this journey started and to get out there, get into our new house. I can't wait for you guys to see it.
Okay, wait, we need to address the new house before you guys see the new house. It is unlike any house we've ever lived in.
Oh my God.
It's a whole different ball game. So I'm excited for you guys to see it. Remember, the prices in Tulsa are way different than the prices here. We got a whole bigger house than we've ever imagined. And I'm talking up the size of it because I don't want it to be a surprise to you guys when you walk into this house.
Well, we never expected to actually buy something this big, but when we found this house and found the opportunity, it was like, oh my gosh, like we have to take this.
Right. The projects are going to be endless. That's what makes me excited because it's not by any means a new build. And for us, like maybe one day we'll build a brand new home, you know, in 5 to 10 years. But for now, like we love the challenge of moving into something that needs a little bit of help and a little bit of restoration.
When we were looking, we kept on debating back and forth. It was like, with the baby coming, would it just be easier just to pop into a new build that we didn't have to touch? We could just live there and be fine with it. And then we also were like, well, what about the total opposite extreme? Like, should we move into a total fixer-upper that we're gonna have to like pour a ton of money into and time into and like sprint and try to get it ready before the baby's done?
The baby's done.
Before the baby's out.
Just keep in mind the prices in this house is huge and crazy, but we didn't move to Beverly Hills and buy this kind of house. We moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma and bought this kind of house. So it's all relative to the market that we're in, and that's one of the reasons we moved there.
So obviously we knew we wanted to move, and our timeline was to move by the end of this year.
When COVID all started happening, we just did not know how long it was gonna last, what the future was gonna hold, if things were gonna shut down really intensely as far as like we weren't gonna be allowed to move or any of that. And so we just kind of felt like, okay, we need to start narrowing down our options and kind of cut the search a little bit short. The only state we didn't get to was Tennessee. And that was a state we really wanted to check out, but in the middle of the pandemic and all the crazy things, and like you said with the baby, we just kind of felt like, okay, of the cities we've seen, which of those do we feel really comfortable with?
I mean, what was really crazy though is that of all the places that we had already been, Tulsa was the one that kept standing out. Like every time we would go somewhere, both Sharrah and Rebecca would be like, oh, but Tulsa was like this, or oh, it's cool, but Tulsa had that, or it's way more expensive than Tulsa. So it was interesting to see that even in our other trips, Tulsa was kind of in the back of our mind, always the front runner ever since our visit.
It just kept standing out. Like there were just so many amazing things about it. We went on our handy dandy phones on Redfin and we started scrolling, and both of us were like on the hunt. Mostly Tyler. Tyler gets really into the Redfin hunt, which is something I've learned about him. It's super cute. And we did find a couple listings that we really loved. And then we were like, holy crap, we can't just buy a house without seeing it. We need to go out there.
It's like everybody else. We were like, is it okay to travel right now?
Right.
And this was, you know, after things had started to open back up. It was like the first week that places were opening back up.
Yeah.
And there was a house that popped up that was like, this is the house.
Yeah.
Like
it was in the neighborhood we knew we wanted to be in. We had our realtor send us a bunch of videos. His name's Mike Keys with McGraw Realty, and we highly recommend Mike if you guys are looking for a house in Tulsa. He was so great and really helped us in this time.
Tried to like, maybe we can get a sense of it just through FaceTime, but we knew like, man, if we're gonna make this move, we have to go and we have to see it in person.
So we actually did a little sneak away to Tulsa. It was really the safest time to fly because the plane was practically empty. No one was in the airport. It was actually kind of eerie.
And at this time, we knew we were pregnant, but like almost nobody else knew either.
Right.
So it was like this whole other thing of like, oh, she's pregnant. We want to make sure it's really safe for her, but we also hadn't told anybody yet. So.
Right. We didn't want to stay in a hotel because we felt like you just never know how clean they are, and there's hundreds of people that stay in those. Harwelden is where we stayed when we went in January, and they have the back house, their carriage house, that they had actually been closed for all of COVID, so they'd been closed for like 2 months at the time. And they reopened it just for us. They were so kind and sweet, and we had like our own little house back there.
And the best part was the house that we were looking at was like walking distance from the Harwelden. We walked over.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to get into the house until the next day, but we're like, let's just go see it and let's go see the neighborhood.
As soon as we walked through the neighborhood, we were just like, oh my gosh, we have to move here. So the next day we had an appointment to actually go into the house and see it for the first time. I'll be honest, the outside of the house wasn't as appealing or like beautiful as I would have wanted it to be, but there was definitely things we could have done to it to make it more our style. And when you first walked in, the first kind of thing we noticed was the ceilings were really short in the entryway, and I think Tyler probably hit his head.
I didn't hit my head, but it was a beautiful house, but it just felt a lot smaller than we thought it would. I know, and we thought, we're like, maybe we'll still do it, but it wasn't a definite yes. And
and the kitchen was really small. That was the other downside. But the things that it had that were really great was it had a big backyard, it had a back house, which is something we were looking for people to stay in, or an office space. And then it had a really beautiful character, and it kind of had the more historical home feel, which is what we were looking for.
So, we saw it and we're a little bit bummed because it wasn't exactly what we were looking for.
Right.
But while we were there, Mike, our realtor, was like, hey, I've got this other listing that I'd love to show you guys.
And he said, it's a little bit above your price range, but I think it's worth it for you to see it. And he said, it's not on the market yet. So we go over to this house, and it's on the most perfect street. It's an even better street than the one.
It's actually literally next door to the first house that we saw in Tulsa.
The cockroach house, do you guys remember that house? It was the house next door. It wasn't on the market in January, so we never considered it. The house next to it was the first house we went and saw. So we walk into this house, and it is adorable. It has the most beautiful trim. The little doorways have this like really pretty, almost like bottom of a heart shape to them. And it had a beautiful kitchen, a nice big sunroom.
Great backyard, great back house, garage.
An outdoor entertainment area.
Oh yeah.
It was just so, so beautiful. And we basically saw it and we're like, this is the house. This is the house we want.
Like we fell in love. Like we're walking through and we see, and there's a bookshelf, and it's got like a Tom Sawyer book. And like at this time, only the two of us know we're pregnant, and we also know we're gonna name our kid. Well, we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl yet. But we knew that if it was a boy, the name would be Sawyer. And we're just like, this is it. We found it. We found our house. But it was more than we wanted to spend.
It was the top of our budget.
It was over the top of our budget. And so, we had to think about it. We're like, let's go home. Let's think about it. Let's pray about it. Let's see if there's a way we can make it work.
The only downside to this house was it really was not a fixer-upper at all. It's a complicated thing when we're looking for a house because of what we do for a living. We want to have projects in our house, and we want to be able to make it our own. And it didn't really need any work. Like what they selected, we really liked. And so we would have done a few different changes, but they would have been small tweaks. And then we would have kind of run out of like cool home projects to do.
It took us a while, but we decided to put in an offer. But by the time that we did, somebody else had already seen it, and they'd also put in an offer.
The people that put the offer in were college friends with the homeowners. So they had this like pre-existing relationship. And so once we found out they were college friends, we're like, we need this house. Let's offer $15,000 more than asking. And then the homeowner was like, the other people offered the exact same amount more. Long story short, we missed out on the house. And we were pretty bummed. And we felt like, what are we gonna do? Our lives are over. That was the house. There's no house that'll compare. I think everyone goes through this thing where you miss out on a house. We hadn't missed out on a house. Like we'd never really gone through that process before. And so there's so many emotions because you start to envision like, oh, what if, we bring our baby in and we're gonna, I remember telling you and all my friends, we're gonna sit out on the lawn and have a picnic. And you just envision this life in this house, and then it's taken away from you and you're like, you're taking my house. Where are we gonna live?
It was a bummer. It was big, and it was like the last day of our trip too. So The hardest part was, okay, like we made this like secret covert trip out to Tulsa and we didn't end up with a house.
Yeah.
So we had to go back to San Diego, kind of brokenhearted, like, what do we do? And, you know, we almost didn't even want to look anymore. We're like, you know, maybe it's not Tulsa. Maybe it's not even here. Like, maybe we need to start looking somewhere else. So for like 3 weeks, it was wild. Like nothing in the area we wanted, the neighborhood, in our price range, the right square footage, just like nothing popped up for like 3 weeks.
It was devastating. And then there was a house and it looked incredible.
Oh, this thing was just like the house of dreams. It was totally in our price range. It was huge. It was, you know, like 4,000 square feet, had a back house or had like a guest quarters, had a huge yard, had amazing curb appeal. Like, as soon as this thing popped up, at first, the first listing didn't have interior photos. It just had the exterior photos.
And it had like a tree with a tire swing in the front. It was like the most picturesque street. Our realtor talked to their realtor and the guy had said, hey, just so you know, this house is like kind of a crazy mess on the inside because there was a lot of flipping halfway that was done by a previous owner. And so it's kind of a hot mess. And when he said that, usually that would deter a lot of people. But for me, I was like, this could be awesome. We need something that's a fixer-upper. Once we saw the interior photos.
Yeah, it still looked like pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It had all kinds of great detail. It had this one room that like, I think they had converted to a bedroom that was just like.
It looked like it would be an amazing family room. It looked like it had 20-foot ceilings with these amazing beams, a cool fireplace we could redo, and it like had doors that got to the backyard, had all these windows on it.
Yeah, the kitchen was outdated, but it was like the perfect, you know, footprint to make a great kitchen.
Great storage options in the kitchen, like so many cabinets.
Yeah, I mean, like if we were gonna pick a house that we didn't really need to touch the outside and just be able to do a full interior makeover, like this was the house. So again, we're kind of like in this situation where it's like, do we go out there? Do we book a trip and do we head out? But, you know, I think before we did, we're like, well, you know, for as much work as it needs, even though it's in our price range, it's definitely overpriced. That's kind of the advice that we got. And so we thought, all right, we definitely don't want to offer asking. Let's throw in an offer that's low and see what they do. And they're like, no, if that's your best price, we might as well take it off the market. And we thought, okay, well, you know what? Like if they're going to take it off the market, we have to go see this in person, because if we never saw it and we miss out on it, we'd be pretty bummed.
The house itself was in our price range, but like Tyler said, it needed a lot of work. And so for what was done in the house, rather what wasn't done in the house did seem like it was priced too high, which is why we didn't offer what they were asking. However, we thought, okay, if this house looks as good as it does in photos, if it's all that it's cracked up to be and it's in the neighborhood we want to be in and it has all the potential, then maybe we will just offer asking and we'll just be done with it and we know where we're going to move, and let's just get started on the renovations because we don't want to waste any time. So we decided to book a trip out there again to see this house. We had a lot of high expectations for this house, and we also knew going into it, we didn't want to be blinded by the fact that we were kind of running against the clock. We really wanted to just find a house, and we didn't want to get into a fixer-upper that was way over our head and potentially was kind of like a money pit.
Right.
And so the night before we left, Tyler had prayed before we went to bed. And what did you pray for?
Well, I was just praying, is like, God, just make it super clear to us if this is a no or if this is a yes.
When we have a baby coming and all these things, there was a lot of things that were pushing us to kind of be a little bit afraid of it. And so we wanted really just for God to give us clarity on like, what's the right decision, what's the wise decision, and how do we know, how are we gonna figure that out when we see it? As he was praying that prayer, I was praying in my own head, Lord, please give us like a sign, like praying for a sign, something so clear. I just pray that there's something so vile, like a dead rat or something in the middle of the house, just like make it obvious that this is not the house for us. And then we left the next morning for Tulsa.
And we're about to get on the plane, and again, and just like, before we get on the plane, quick prayer, just like, okay, Lord, like, I pray that you like give Mike a couple houses that we haven't even seen or been on our radar yet. So that way when we go out there, there's more than one house for us to see.
Yeah, we also felt like, okay, if we have other options, we won't just rush into this house that could be bad for us. We'll want to see other things.
So we mask up, glove up, get all the Lysol on the plane. When we get out there,
and
when
we land, and Mike texted Tyler and said, hey, I have 3 new listings that just popped up. that I think are really good options for you guys to see.
So right away it was like, okay, great, this feels good. We have some options. But we had scheduled our trip so that we could see the house that first day as soon as we got there.
The house we were excited, the fixer-upper one.
Yeah.
Again, I have not told Tyler about my whole like, Lord, please put a rat in the house situation. And we pull up and the house looks amazing on the outside. We're all excited about it.
We walk into the house and right away I noticed, oh, this needs a lot more work than we thought.
Basically, only one room in the house looked really move-in ready, and the rest of the rooms were either missing baseboards or like the trim around the windows, or...
And it just felt like a lot of the work that had been done kind of cheaply, and we'd have to redo it.
It just looked like people didn't get paid to do the work that they had done, and so they just left it as is, and everyone walked out of the house, and it had been sitting there for months or something.
So as I'm seeing this, I'm starting to get a little nervous because I'm starting to think maybe this isn't the house for us, but I know how excited, both Sharrah and I were, and Sharrah was for this house.
And I'm still seeing opportunity. I'm at this point still thinking, okay, so what? We put some trim on the doorways, like that's not that hard to do. And then we walk into the kitchen, and right outside the kitchen window is a dead snake hanging in the window, about this big of a snake, with its tail chewed off. If you don't want to see the picture of the snake, close your eyes for the next 4 seconds. Tyler said, "Is that a snake?" And I pulled Tyler and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Tyler, last night I prayed that there'd be a rat and there's a snake, there's a snake, there's a snake." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "I prayed that God would put a rat in the house and there's a serpent hanging from the window. Like, this is a sign this house is not for us." There were dead cockroaches all over the house. There were spiders everywhere. It was just like, it felt like the house had been abandoned for months and months and months, and it was just disgusting. And it just showed us that like there is no way we can offer asking on this house because it is way overpriced.
I was just like, oh, thank you, Lord, they didn't take our first offer. Because even our first offer, we lowballed them, but even our first offer would have been too much for the shape of that house.
And the room that I was most excited about in that house, which was the living room with the beams, it looked in the photos like it was 20-foot ceilings, but they were like 8-foot ceilings.
So again, it was almost like, okay, well, thankfully Mike has a few other houses to show us, because if this is our only option, this is going to be tough.
I was pretty bummed because I was really hoping that house was going to turn out to be great.
I was bummed, but I was also like at peace.
Yeah,
I was really happy that we had the sign we were looking for, so we could walk away from that. And
knowing it was good to walk away.
Right.
So the next day, we went to a couple houses. I think it was like the 3rd or 4th house we saw that day. Was a house that we did not expect at all. So we pull up to this house. I was really hesitant because it was over our budget and the house was so big, and it kind of made me think it's already over our budget and it's gonna cost money for us to make this house into our own space and make it fit our style.
I had no idea what to think, really. Like when we pulled up to it, I was like, wow, it's a big, beautiful house, but it wasn't until we got inside that I actually started to think about what it would be like to live there.
I thought it was great because when Tyler first walked up to the front door, he was not a giant. Like, the door was so big that Tyler looked like a normal sized human, which is really rare because he's 6'4", and usually he just makes everything look really, really small. So when we first walked in, we loved what we saw.
You walk in and the first impression is just amazing. I mean, it's just this beautiful staircase, all this amazing wood trim, and high ceilings.
Yeah, the ceilings were so tall. One of the things I love about it is all the character. The way that the house is currently, it does feel very regal and very grand and almost a little bit gothic in some areas. So to me it was exciting because it wasn't my style, which means I get to make it my style, but it had amazing bones and it had amazing floors with these really cool patterns. And as we walked through the house, it just got more and more amazing. The kitchen was so cool. The master bedroom, you were just like blown away when you walked into the master bedroom.
I just couldn't believe how big it was. The master alone was bigger than our apartment in Hermosa.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty crazy.
I just couldn't believe we were walking through this house like there was any chance it was remotely in our budget.
Like, it felt like we shouldn't even be looking at this house because it was just, there's no way this house is in our budget at all. And so we left that house feeling like, holy cow, that was amazing. I don't know how anything's gonna compare. We thought, okay, well, we don't want to miss out on another house. We've already been through that a couple of times.
But we also knew that, the asking price we couldn't afford. And so we're just like, let's just get right to the chase. Let's just offer as much as we can and see what they say. And if they say no, that's a no. But if they say yes, then amazing.
then we know it's God's will, because we are offering lower than they're asking, and usually that doesn't work out in our favor. So we made an offer and we waited. And we waited about 24 hours. And then Tyler's parents actually came down to visit us while we were on this trip. They live in Indiana, and so they made a quick 8-hour drive just to come and visit, and they were able to see the house themselves, which was really cool to experience with them. And we were actually at lunch, and we got the call from our realtor.
It was amazing. Mike was just like, "You're going to be thanking me forever." They took the offer.
We definitely were like, once they said yes, it all happened like we expected it to, for them to come back and maybe go ask for a little more, and then we would counter. We expected a couple of those back and forths, and they just took it at once we offered, which was like so cool. But we both were like, oh no, what did we just do? We bought this huge house. Was this the right idea? Like, we were having total buyer's remorse for like
it's
a few hours.
The house is beautiful, but it's way bigger than we ever thought we'd be getting for our first house.
Yeah.
My dad kept joking like, oh, nice starter home.
And it is a huge house. It's not anything that we ever would have expected.
But when you think about it, we are moving out of California so
Yeah.
we could afford something that we could never afford in California. This house in California would be $3 million.
Yeah, at least. And it's a fixer-upper still in a lot of ways. For us, it's just exciting because we get the beautiful framework of a home that has a lot of history behind it. We get the ability to make it our own and have a ton of content and projects to walk through with you guys, and just to start doing cool things to a space that we've never been able to do before is just such an exciting adventure. But it is fully livable. It's beautiful, it's comfortable, it's clean, it's not falling apart, you know, and it'll be a safe place for us to bring a baby home to before we can really get into all the renovations and things. I can't wait to do an empty house tour and show you guys this house before we get into it, and do a couple of fun videos. Christmas, I already know where I'm putting my Christmas trees, multiple, plural, trees.
Where's the baby gonna go?
That we're figuring out.
We bought a house!
So we're filming this video the beginning of July, but we're out of here by August 1st, which is in a month.
Wow.
And we're working on the Cliff House install. We've got to pack up this entire house. We've got to get everything going. We've got to figure out if we're gonna do a pod or a moving truck.
If we're gonna drive or sell the car.
If he's gonna drive, or if I'm gonna fly, because he's probably gonna drive and I'm gonna probably fly. But yeah, we have an adventure to go on, and we've got about 3 weeks to figure out how to get ourselves packed up and out. And I'm still growing a baby, which is like a whole nother job in and of itself. But I'm so happy I feel back to normal now, and I'm not so sick like I was the first trimester. It's kind of the perfect time to move. I've got a lot of energy, and we're moving to Tulsa.
We're moving to Tulsa. Can't believe we bought a house.
I know. Oklahoma.
Where the wind comes soaring down the plains.
We'll have to learn that song better. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope we answered a lot of your questions. If you have more questions, be sure to put them in the comments below, and we'll try to address them in future videos or comment back to them.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know about Tulsa, Google that. It's a cool place.
Scout, we're moving to Tulsa. Come here. Come here. What do you think? You're gonna have a yard all to yourself? Oh, you're so sleepy. Love you guys. Thanks for watching.
Subscribe.
We'll see you next time. We'll see you in Tulsa at our new house.
Wow.
Crazy.